Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's going on, my awesome friend? Welcome back to the podcast. I am Matthew Bivens, your balanced lifestyle coach and transformation specialist, and I'm here holding it down with you as we do each and every week to talk about having it all. This is the place to come to when you want to learn how to have it all. Because you're asking yourself that question, how can I have it all in my life? Like, I want it all. I want the great career. I want the great family. I want the great health. I want so much fun. I want all the success and all the abundance. I want to have it all. Well, this is where you come to ponder that question. And in the context of this show, what we're talking about when we're talking about having it all is living the abundant, loving life, ALL, abundant, loving life, because we understand that having it all has nothing to do with what you possess, has nothing to do with anything external to you, not your beautiful spouse or your awesome family or all the money in your bank or the brand new whip you got in your driveway. None of that has to do with having it all. Because having it all has to do with who you're being. It's a beingness, and it comes from within. And so that's what we explore here. And I teach you how to create everything you want in your life from the inside out by first examining your beliefs, your thoughts, your paradigms, looking at your habits, your lifestyle, and making whatever adjustments, additions, subtractions you need to make so that you can then manifest and co-create whatever it is that you want outside of yourself, because it always happens inside out. Always. Remember that. So welcome. Welcome. As you can tell, this is a show that we don't get into some heavy stuff, right? We just kind of skirt on the surface. Not at all. We go deep on this podcast, and that's why I love it. That's why I love having these conversations, because this is real life stuff. Life is messy, it's gritty, it's dirty, you get bloody, you fall down, but man, is it beautiful, and it is awesome, and it is so rewarding and can be so fulfilling. But you got to understand how to play that game. Got to understand it. So thank you for joining me today. If this is your first time showing up on this podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm happy that you're here. I'm grateful that you chose to spend the time here, and buckle up because we're going in today. We are talking about two things that are super, super important, and they're actually connected, concepts of letting go and gaining closure. We're digging into, how do you actually let go? When you're so attached to something, how can you let go? What's the process behind that? And how can you gain closure on something when closure just seems impossible? So I know that right now you are experiencing either one of those things, maybe even both of those things. There's an area in your life where you could let go. It would serve and benefit you to let go. And there's an area in your life where you haven't fully created closure for yourself. So by the end of the conversation today, you're going to feel more equipped and more empowered to let go and to create the closure that you want. That's my guarantee from today. Yes. And if it sounds like I'm a little off right now, it's because I am so stuffy. I came down with this funkiness last night. It was like a little teeny tickle that turned into this raging inferno in my throat. I thought I had strep throat, but that wasn't the case. But man, I'm just feeling it. And I said, maybe I'll just do a rebroadcast today or something. But then I said, no, you're going to show up, man. You're going to show up and you're going to deliver an episode, because I really was and am very excited about this conversation, because I think it's so needed. And it's very relevant to myself and to where I have found myself at recently, this idea of letting go and gaining closure. So please give me some leeway if you hear me sounding stuffy or sniffling, or if I'm drinking my water or blowing my nose. Like, hey, that's just part of it. That's what you got to deal with today. If you want the juice from the conversation, if you want all the goodness, you got to deal with the snot. So sorry about that. That's what happens in podcast world. We got to keep the things moving. Before we jump into the topics today, I would love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on whatever device you prefer or whatever app you prefer to listen to podcasts on. Just hit subscribe. It's like takes 2 seconds. Boop, boop, hit that little button. Because that tells that app that Having It All is a dope show, and that app will go and now push the show up the charts a little bit and share it with other people. And we'll get it in front of new people who haven't heard the podcast yet. And so please do that. That will be fantastic. And if you can leave a rating and review on your podcast app, do that as well. That'd be fantastic. I love seeing ratings. I love seeing reviews. I check them most frequently on Apple Podcasts. So if you have one of those accounts and you leave a rating and a review there, I will definitely see it. I'll read it. I might even read it on the show or give you some comments on it or anything like that. But I love reading your feedback because that's what helps me keep this show, moving powerfully forward. And you can give me topic suggestions. You can give me just your thoughts on the show, what you like or don't like. You can just say what's up, whatever it is. I'm open to all of it. So subscribe, rating, review. Do that, please. That'll be fantastic. And also, if this episode resonates with you, because I know it will, you're going to get something from it. Share it with one person that you feel could benefit from hearing this stuff. Just one person. And that could be a tremendous gift to them. Because you never know, like, something somebody says, or the way they say it, or just whatever it is, the vibe, the energy, it just connects. Like, you never know when a person has an opening that message can just drop right in. Because there's times in your life where you've had an aha moment. And it probably wasn't because an entirely brand new idea struck you. It was probably because an idea that had been swirling around you for a long time finally found its opening. You had an opening for it. You were a little bit surrendered. You had let go. You had opened that door just a crack. And that idea that had been there all along, that you had heard 1,000 times all along, could finally penetrate. And so you never know when you can help, hold space and help create that for another person. So share the episode with one person that you think would get something from it, and that's how you can pay it forward as well. Lastly, if you want to connect with me, you can do so in 2 ways. You can hit me up on my email, matthew@matthewbivens.com, or you can go to Instagram. I'm at Matthew_Bivens, and you can shoot me an email. Again, suggest topics for the podcast. Share with me your stories. Share with me stuff going on in your life. Give me some feedback on the show, what you like and don't like, or just say what's up. Whatever you want to do, you can hit me up in those 2 places. Oh, man, I already feel like I'm breathing through my mouth. I just hear it in my mic like... So, yeah, you're going to be dealing with that for the next 30 minutes. Okay, let's do this. I'm excited about today's conversation, and I think you are too. Let's get things started with some magic. And magic, if you forgot, or if this is your first time here, magic is when you influence yourself, others, or life in an empowering way. It's one of those things that is very, very easy to overlook. And it has very dire consequences when you overlook magic. So the ability to influence yourself, other people, or life is something that you have. If you're a human walking around breathing, you have the ability to influence self, others, or life. We don't always use that ability to influence people and or ourselves in an empowering way. Right? Look at what Hitler did. He influenced a lot of people to do some terrible stuff. He used influence, right? Influence doesn't always move in a direction that heals, uplifts, and empowers. And so, when we use our own influence to move ourselves, to move somebody else, or to move life in a healing, uplifting, or empowering way, it is worth recognizing. It is worth recognizing, and it is worth celebrating. Because when we do that, we grow in our strength and our ability and our confidence to create more magic. And when we don't recognize it, we start to believe that we aren't influencers. We aren't powerful. We aren't creators. And it's so easy to feel like life then happens to you. That you are the recipient of good or bad luck. That you are simply along for the ride, and life is either going to serve you up some great stuff or it's going to serve you up piles of stuff you don't want. And you have no say. That is a consequence of not strengthening your magic muscle. And I guarantee you, you will not feel like you have it all in whatever way you define it. And you certainly won't feel like you are living an abundant, loving life if you have a weak magic muscle and you're constantly feeling like life is either going to be giving you good luck or bad luck. I don't believe in luck at all, one bit. I do not believe in luck. I believe that consciousness creates. I believe every choice has a consequence. I believe in principles. And I look to see the connections between all things. Because I believe if you go deep enough, you'll understand why X, Y, or Z happened. Absolutely. So magic for me is incredibly important. And it's something that I'm always going to be exercising in my own life, practicing, seeing the magic and recognizing it. And I'm always going to recommend it for you as well. It's one of the easiest ways to have it all is to grow your magic muscle. So my magic is magic. I guess it's others' magic, because last week I published an episode on the podcast that was very different. It was a very raw sharing that Sarah, my wife, and I did. And we just shared how we were feeling along what we were calling our conception journey. So if you haven't listened to the episode yet, I definitely recommend you check it out. It's very different, and there's some powerful stuff in there. But quickly, my wife and I have been wanting to grow our family. We have a beautiful baby girl. Her name is Maya. She's actually not a baby anymore. She reminds me of that all the time. She's 4 years old, and she's amazing, and we have an awesome trio. And we wanted to expand and add another one. And that process, that journey towards adding a new family member was not going the way that we had thought it would, hoped it would, anticipated it would. And that brought up a lot of frustration, a lot of emotion. And so what Sarah and I did is, through the process of us letting go, one of the things that we decided to do was, hey, let's get on the mic and let's just record our raw feelings. Let's just record how we're feeling, no filter. Let's take off our hats as coaches and let's just be real. And so we did. We did that, and we said, you know what? Let's now share this with people, because there's a lot of value in people hearing this raw emotional sharing. And that's what we did. And as a result, we got just a flood of messages and love from you. And I published that conversation on my podcast. I published it on the podcast that I do with Sarah called Doing It at Home. And we shared it in our private Facebook group for home birth families. And just the outpouring of love from all three of those places the conversation was shared is just tremendous. And so my goal really in putting it on the Having It All feed was I wanted to share raw and honest feelings. I think that a lot of times we don't get the raw and honest feelings. We don't allow ourselves to feel them, and we don't hear them from other people. There's something that's like they're dressed up in some way, because we don't want to be that raw and that honest. It was also my goal to share an example of people processing something in real time. And I think it's important to hear an example of somebody who has a certain level of awareness or understanding, or just like that personal mastery. I'm not saying I'm a master, but I definitely am damn well on that path. And so there's a lot of value in hearing how conscious people process stuff. And that's what I wanted to do. And it was also my goal to be very vulnerable with you. I think that's a superpower. I think that's one of my personal superpowers is vulnerability. So I wanted to share all three of those things with you. Excuse me. And in doing that, I also feel that there's a lot of power in just that type of sharing. And I think there's tremendous power for you all in hearing how a conscious couple deals with some real life stuff. Because that's Sarah and I are, conscious couple. And in that conversation, you just got to hear how we deal with stuff, what comes up, how we hold space, how we communicate about it, how we express about it, all that great stuff. There's also tremendous power in hearing, like I said, people share their true feelings openly. Like really openly. This is what I'm actually feeling, without trying to sugarcoat it or water it down or make it politically correct, saying whatever comes up, even if it's not the most empowering thing, right? Like there's moments in listening back that I could almost coach myself and be like, man, you're feeling so down over this, not being able to grow your family, and you have a beautiful 4-year-old. Like, come on, you have a beautiful 4-year-old. And it wasn't as if you and Sarah lost a pregnancy. So there wasn't a thing that you had, but then now it's gone. So what's the deal? And yeah, true. And there is power in just hearing the raw sharing, because I think it gives everybody permission to just feel. Sometimes the way you feel is the way you feel. It just is what it is. And lastly, I think there is tremendous power in hearing a man be vulnerable, because we don't hear enough of that. Men being vulnerable and being honest and really sharing how they're feeling about something, particularly around family, particularly around fatherhood. And so I wanted to do all those things, and I believe I did them, and I believe all those things were checked off in sharing. Now, in hindsight, because I did go back and re-listen, and I did kind of ask myself, man, I got a lot of love, and it's beautiful love, but I wonder, what was some of the inspiration behind that? And in hindsight, I feel that the one thing missing from last week's episode was sharing where Sarah and I were currently at the time of publishing the episode. Because what you heard was a recorded conversation from earlier. So it was like earlier in the summer or whenever we did it, I forget. And then time had gone by between when we first recorded it and then when it was published. And during that time, that's when our letting go really happened. And the recorded conversation was part of us letting go. It was part of our process towards letting go, was recording and publishing that conversation. And so in hindsight, I felt it was missing that I didn't share, hey, Sarah and I are doing amazing. We are doing great. We are in a really awesome space around this idea of expanding our family. We have let go of so much of the stuff that we were holding on to that was creating all those feelings and emotions. And we're just in a different space around it. We really are. And, that is maybe the one thing that I would have gone back and shared and kind of given context around. And you know what? I didn't. And so what was really cool is you got to just be in it with us for however long it was until you listen to this episode. And so I want to share with you some of the ways that the process we went to letting go, because we didn't communicate that. We didn't communicate how we worked on letting go, the specific things we had done to process and let go of the attachments, and how we're feeling after that rough patch. So I'm going to list them out now. And this can be things that you can also do. If you find yourself highly, highly attached to something or someone or some idea or whatever, and you just can't let it go, and it's not serving you, and it's creating stress or worry or anything that doesn't feel good, then you might want to pay attention. So here's what we did to work on letting go. First of all, we allowed ourselves to just feel. We gave ourselves permission to feel, even when we knew that the feelings we were expressing weren't coming from the most powerful space. We said, hey, for the next 5 minutes, I'm very clear that the things that are about to come out of my mouth, there's some victim talk. It's disempowering. This is not how I normally talk, but you know what? I got to express this stuff and I got to get it out. And that was incredibly powerful. And so we allowed ourselves to feel. Another thing that we did is we gave each other space. It wasn't always about, how are you feeling? What are you going through right now? What emotion are you trying to process? No, sometimes it was like, I need to be alone. I just want to be alone. I just won't be alone. So leave me alone. Sometimes we just needed to I need to go outside and just work in the yard and move my body, and just, that's how I was going to process and release some stuff. And so we honored that. When one of us asked for some time and space, the other one gave it. And when one of us recognized that the other person could benefit from some time or space, we suggested it. So if I saw that Sarah just wasn't in her sweet spot, I would say, hey, babe, do you want some time to yourself? I'm happy to draw you a bath. You want to go in the back and read? I can take the kiddo somewhere. You just need some time. That's how tuned in we were to ourselves and one another to be able to ask for that and to be able to spot that and suggest it. We also talked to each other. We talked, right? Like allowing ourselves to feel sometimes happened privately, sometimes happened together, but our conversations definitely happened. And we talked a lot, and a lot of it was open, and there was a lot of space holding for one another. And what was cool about the sharing is it wasn't always super intense. It wasn't always very long, and it wasn't always both people talking. Sometimes I'd be like at the kitchen cooking dinner or something, and I'd have a feeling and I would just express it, and then I'd move on. I just needed to get it out. I just needed to talk it out. And same with Sarah. And so it wasn't like we had hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of what you heard on the podcast. That happened for sure. But there was a lot of other moments where we just needed to like talk. And so we did. And the last thing that I think really, really helped us is that we didn't just talk to each other. We also talked to our trusted circles. Because when we're talking to each other, we're both going through the same experience. We're having our own unique experience of that experience and our own unique feelings, but we're both in it. When we were to talk to our trusted circles, they weren't in it with us. And therefore, they had a different perspective. Oftentimes, they could see the forest for the trees and let us know what was up. They gave us feedback. They knew when to give compassion and to empathize. They knew when to just be like, okay, I hear you. And you're attached. You know what I mean? And that was, to me, was tremendous because I need that. Like when I'm in something and I'm in it, I can just see 2 inches in front of my face. I need those people around me, my Avengers squad, as I like to call them sometimes. Like I need those folks around me who say, hey, dude, I get it. Your face is down, but they'll pick your head up and look around. Like there's more going on. And so that's what we did. And so, that process for us, allowing ourselves to feel, talking to one another, giving each other space, sharing with our trusted circles, that helped us to actually process what we were going through and look at the individual feelings, look at the individual attachments, ask ourselves, can I let this one go? Can I release this? Am I going to be okay? And just see what was in there. Because that's a huge part of letting go. You got to see what you're holding on to. If you're in denial about what you're attached to, you will never let it go. And if you're afraid to go in, if you're afraid to share your feelings, if you're afraid to be vulnerable, if you're afraid to be with yourself and be with your thoughts, then you will never let go of that thing you're attached to. You can't think yourself through attachment. You cannot intellectualize yourself into surrender and letting go. You can't. So I apologize if you thought you were smarter than this, because if you were so smart, why are you taking notes right now? Right? You can't intellectualize yourself through letting go. You just can't. You have to actually come to terms with the things that you are really holding on to. And so for me, ultimately, it was in talking about my feelings that I was able to release them and get back into my center. Talking through it, it just gave me the ability to like get that funky energy out of me. Because before, when I wasn't talking, I was just stewing on things. I was asking a whole bunch of questions. Why this? Why that? And I was wondering and wondering and wondering. That energy had nowhere to go. It was just spinning around in me. So talking was like hitting the release valve and all that stuff came out. And so, yeah, after Sarah and I recorded and published that episode, we continued on our process and we got to a space where we let go. We let go of needing the pregnancy to happen right now. We let go of the stories of, well, Maya's getting too old and I'm getting too old and I want this. We just let go of that stuff. We let go of it. And we both felt and feel changed. And, it may not have sounded like that in the audio, but that's okay because that was part of the process. And since then, things have been so different. They've been so different. I mean, you get it. If you have literally let go of something and you've released an attachment, it's like the lights have been turned on in a dark room. It's just different. We've been so much more present as a couple and as a trio. Sarah and myself, we haven't experienced all those funky feelings that kept coming up in the past. Our time together has felt so much more intimate. Our lovemaking has been so much more connected. Our time as a family has been so much more fun. And we're just in that blissful space. We really are. And so that is maybe what I would have added to that episode. But you know what? It's perfect that it's coming out now. Because now if you listened to it last week, you get a chance to be with your own feelings for a week. And then now you get some greater context and some process around letting go for yourself. And letting go can totally be a process. Sometimes it's like a switch. You just flip the switch and you're done. Sometimes it's a process. For me, it was that process. And it's a process where along the way, one moment you might feel awesome and the next moment you feel terrible. One moment you feel big and confident like you got it, and the next moment you feel small and angry and weak. And that's just part of it. And guess what? It's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's part of life. It's part of this grand experience. And if you can learn to let go and you can learn to surrender, it is such a sweet space on the other side. Growth is on the other side. Transformation is on the other side. Expansion is on the other side. And it's there guaranteed. You don't have to wonder if it's actually there. If you're wondering, it's because you're still attached and you still haven't let go. Because once you get there, you're like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah. So I want to say thank you so much for the texts, for the emails, for the voice notes, for the words of love, and for the encouragement. Those are such huge deposits for me. Words of affirmation is a love language of mine. And so I receive all of them. And it's awesome. You are amazing. You are incredible. And I thank you. And that is my magic. So now, this is where I offer up for you to reflect on a piece of magic in your own life. It can be small. It can be big. All of it's important. So if you're feeling inspired, hit pause on the podcast right now. Think about your magic and then hit play again and we will continue. Okay, my voice is feeling oh so prickly. Don't you just love a sore throat? It never goes away. It's like when you swallow, it hurts. When you aren't swallowing, it hurts. Oof. Brings me present. Okay, let's get into this next part of this conversation because we're going to keep this whole thing going about letting go. And now we're moving into what I'm excited about because I'm about to read to you a letter from a listener, and we're going to dig into this. And like I said, or I think I said this, I used to do this back in the day earlier in the podcast. I would read a listener letter, and then I would give some live feedback. And what I love about this is kind of like coaching. Like this is a lot of what I do in coaching. It may not be a letter. Sometimes it is. Sometimes clients will write stuff up, and then we're going to dig through it in a call. A lot of times it's in a conversation that they'll say certain things, and then we dig through it right there, and I give some straight up feedback right there. And so in this case, I've got the letter, and I can read it and say, ooh, let's talk about that, what you wrote there. Let's talk about this. So that's what we're going to do. And this is a nice one. It's a juicy one, and it's a bit long, so I'm going to read. I've actually edited it down just a little bit, but there's a lot in here. So I'm going to read through this, and then we're going to go through paragraph by paragraph, and I'm going to give some feedback. So this comes from Jody, and Jody writes. Actually, I need some more water real quick. Okay. Jody writes, I think it would be helpful for you to do an episode on getting closure when you can't get closure. 2 years ago, I was fired from my job. I had been with the company for 10 years, and my loyalty and commitment to it was outstanding. Over the years, I had been promoted to a prestigious position, and I felt I was on top of the world. Then, one morning, I was called to a meeting, and the rug was completely pulled out from under me. I was completely blindsided. Oh, excuse me. They were asking me to leave this company, which I had sacrificed so many things for over the years. This was a stab to my heart, and I've been bleeding out slowly over the last 2 years. Due to the nature of the community I live in and my line of work, I know I couldn't tell anyone what really happened. Instead, I announced, quote unquote, my decision to start my own company. My husband, parents, and best friend knew the truth, but I had to put on a show for the rest of the world. Initially, I took my feelings of anger and resentment and used it to motivate me to be the best, as I tried to build my new company to make it equally as amazing as quickly as possible. But then the insecurities really started to seep in, and I grew increasingly depressed. I realize grief over a job loss needs time, but I find myself repeatedly enthralled with ruminating in my mind why this happened. Was my assistant sneaky and calculated? Did a client secretly report something awful about me? Did they feel I was getting full of myself and not, quote unquote, worshiping them enough? Questions like these can pop in my mind at any moment and overwhelm me and drag me down to a dark place. Then, wanting to do something revengeful so they hurt like I'm hurting. Trying my best to trust in karma and meditate on any good that came out of it. Re-examining the notion of loyalty, something I once prided myself in being, as it now seemed hindering and naive. The door is closed to go back to the company and try to have a quote-unquote closure conversation. They would never agree to it, and it would probably just create more trauma for me. So, how does someone get the closure they desperately need in order to be truly happy again and be their best self without the possibility of confrontation? From your show, I get a very clear understanding of how I should live a balanced life moving forward, with tools to create an abundant life. But I'm lost when it comes to getting over an emotionally jarring life hurdle that really mess with my head. First off, Jody, thank you so much for such an incredible letter. You were courageous, you were bold, very vulnerable. You just put it out there. I appreciate you just sharing raw how you were feeling. It felt like you did a little bit of processing, but you were like, you know what, I'm going to put it all out there. And this is the situation, and this is how I feel. So thank you for that. Also, thank you for being courageous enough to ask for feedback around it. That tells me that you realize that, you're seeing it from a certain vantage point, and your solution is not going to be found in that same vantage point. And I think that's incredibly awesome, very mature to be able to understand that. So I give you so much props for that. Okay, I want to dig through this a little bit because there's definitely some stuff in here for you to think about. And I get that you want to. So I'm going to go in the order that you wrote this stuff out. We're just going to go through it like that. And I actually highlighted it. And then I'm going to talk about the things I highlighted. So the first thing is in this second sentence, you said, I had been with the company for 10 years and my loyalty and commitment was outstanding. So to me, first thing I think about is loyalty. And in this case, I'm assuming you're talking about loyalty to the job. But what about loyalty to yourself? Because I'm sure that job had a purpose and a values and a mission that were written down. Maybe they were plastered on the walls. Maybe it was in a handbook or something. And you, over those 10 years, or however many years, 10 years, helped to serve that purpose and those values and that mission. It helped to bring all of it to fruition. But what about your own purpose? What about your own values? What about your own mission? It's so easy to feel wronged when you've been building something for somebody else. And during that process, you haven't been getting your life out of the experience. I would feel wronged too. But I would feel like I wronged myself. Because in being so loyal and building up something for somebody else, it seems as if you weren't building up yourself and getting something out of it for yourself truly. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing I look at is, you said, over the years, I've been promoted to a prestigious position and I felt I was on top of the world. And so what that makes me think about is how much of your self-worth, potentially, was tied into your position and into the validation that you received due to those promotions. Because it's really easy for that to happen. It's very easy for your self-worth to get tied up to your net worth. And you feel like when you've got a lot of money or you've got the promotions or you've got a high position, that now, oh yeah, like I'm the king, I'm the queen. That you're really worth something, that you're really valuable. But when you don't have those things, then you feel low. It's dangerous. That's a dangerous place to be in when you're letting external things validate you and tell you that you're worthy and valuable. It's dangerous because as you're experiencing, those external things can go away in an instant. They can just be gone. And if that's what was propping up your self-esteem, then the way you feel about yourself, it crumbles as soon as those things are gone. And so it doesn't shock me that you've hit such a low if your sense of self was so propped up by this company and the position and the accolades and all of that stuff. That doesn't shock me if that's the case, if that's what has happened. And only you can answer that. But that's what comes to mind when I read that.
At Baker's, shopping with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store. Same low prices, deals, and rewards on the same high-quality items. It's one small click for groceries, one big win for busy families everywhere. Start your cart today at bakersplus.com. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
All right, so fast forward a little bit. You said this was a stab to my heart, and I've been bleeding out slowly over the last 2 years. And 2 years is a long time to be in that quagmire. And I feel for you. I do, because I understand what that's like, to be stuck like that and to feel like you're just unable to navigate out of that fog by yourself. So again, I want to give you props for just reaching out for feedback. You know, that is absolutely one way that you can elevate yourself above the challenge that you're facing so that you can gain the necessary perspective that can help you to figure out your solution and ultimately move on by asking for feedback. So it's awesome that you did it at 2 years instead of 5 years, instead of 10 years. And I just think that's super courageous, and so I wanted to acknowledge you again. The next thing that stood out to me is where you said, due to the nature of the community I live in and my line of work, I know I couldn't tell anyone what really happened. Jody, that is a huge red flag for me. Super, super red flag. Anytime you feel like you cannot be honest or truthful or authentic, that to me is something to look at. Now, I don't know the particulars of your community or of your line of work. Maybe it was in your contract. Maybe it was in the community that you're a part of that says that you can't be real, can't be honest. But for me, I am not interested in participating in a community or in a job like that wouldn't support the truth, that wouldn't support authentic expression. That's just me. And so feeling like you can't tell anybody and start buying into that, that is going to feed this notion that you can't be yourself, that it isn't important for you to be yourself, that it's better for you to put on a mask or put on a facade. And when you start feeling like you can't be authentic and starting to believe that has some big ramifications. And actually, you say later on, I had to put on a show for the rest of the world. And I'm telling you, that type of belief, which in my opinion is a lie, that can pull you down to the depths for sure. Because you think that you're having to put this show on for other people, but in reality, you're just putting on the show for yourself because you're too scared to face what's really going on deep inside of you. That's what that is. It's not about the other people, and it never was. It never has been. But it's so much easier to say, I'm putting on the show for others, because when you do that, you put the onus on them. It's not that you don't want to be authentic or you don't want to be truthful. You can't, because they're telling you that you can't. That is just a tricky, tricky place to be in. Because to me, the reality is that it's your own fear of being authentic that's keeping you stuck. And so here we are again in the same paragraph. Authenticity is coming up. So Jody, I ask you, where are you not being authentic? Where are you avoiding authenticity? Where are you avoiding just really looking at your feelings, like going in deep down and looking at them and examining them? That is absolutely something that I would explore, because it's coming up twice in this paragraph. And that concept of loyalty right? Thinking about, am I being loyal to my purpose, to my value, to my mission? Part of being able to go through life being authentic is having some idea and some clarity around your purpose, your values, and your mission. So if you don't know those things, it is tough to be authentic. And I get that. Next part that stood out to me was the end of this paragraph where you said, I took my feelings of anger and resentment and used it to motivate me to be the best as I tried to build my new company. But then the insecurities really started to seep in and I grew increasingly depressed. And my feedback to you on that is it makes total sense. It makes total sense. And I'm going to turn to a book right now. I'm looking at Power vs. Force by David R. Hawkins. Go get a copy if you don't have it already. And if you don't have a copy next to you, you can go to your computer. You can go to Google and search Map of Consciousness, Power vs. Force. And what you're going to see is a little chart that's going to have some numbers and it's going to have some different words. So it has levels and it has the numbers associated with the level. And we're looking at an overall state of consciousness, right? Where you are calibrating consciously. It goes from 0 to 1,000, from shame at the bottom all the way up to enlightenment at the top. And so when we look at anger, you said, I took my feelings of anger and resentment and used it to motivate me. It 100% makes sense because anger calibrates at 150. Anger calibrates higher than grief. You said that you were in this grief place. You said the bleeding heart, stabbed in the heart, it's been bleeding out. That's grief. Grief calibrates at 75. So as you went from that bleeding heart grief of 75 up to anger at 150, it feels empowering because it is empowering. It is empowering. You've doubled 75 to 150. Your consciousness doubled when you went from that state, from the grief state to the anger state. So it's going to feel empowering. Yet, what you're also experiencing is that staying in that anger is only going to do so much for you. Being angry is only going to get you so far, right? Because you said the insecurities really started to seep in and you grew increasingly depressed. So in Power vs. Force, when you look at the map of consciousness, what you will learn is that states that are 200 and up, states that calibrate at 200 and up, come from a place of power. Those are the states you want to play for. Courage, neutrality, willingness, reason, love, joy. Those are the states that elevate and uplift and heal, right? States that are 199 and below, those states are coming from a place of force. They are the destructive states. They are the states that will pull you down. Pride, anger, desire, fear, so on and so forth, all the way down to shame. So when you were at grief, you were at 75 and you felt the grief. Then you started to get angry. Angry felt empowering because anger calibrates higher. You were literally rising in your calibration as you became angry. And you used that anger to motivate and fuel you. And that was awesome at the time. But you didn't move beyond the anger because you didn't process this stuff because you're having a hard time gaining closure. And so after that anger ran its course, you aren't left with anything empowering because you're still sub 200. You haven't broken past those levels. You're still in that muck of sub 200 feelings, of sub 200 beingness. And so the insecurities seep in, of course, and you become depressed, of course. You're feeling depressed because you're staying in a depressed energy. So I really want you to grab a copy of Power vs. Force. It helps you to understand these things to a greater degree. And a lot of times once you understand them, then you can work your way through them. So when I read that, I said, oh yeah, it makes so much sense. So much sense. Anger, grief, all of that stuff. It makes so much sense as to where you're at and why you're feeling what you're feeling. The next part that stood out to me is the next paragraph. You said, I realize grief over a job loss needs time, but I find myself repeatedly enthralled with ruminating in my mind why this happened. And then, Jody, you go on to ask a whole bunch of questions. You say, Was my assistant sneaky and calculated? Did a client secretly report something awful? Did they feel I was getting full of myself and not worshiping them? One thing I want you to understand is that every question has an answer. It's a coin that has two sides. A question cannot exist without an answer. So, you are asking questions that absolutely have answers, yet the answers you're getting are not doing anything to help you. It's not helping you elevate beyond your anger. Was my assistant sneaky and calculated? If you answer that yes, okay, you get to stay angry and you get to stay a victim to her sneakiness and calculatedness. Or if you answer no, then you still aren't satisfied. Okay, if it wasn't my sneaky assistant, what else was it? Well, maybe a client secretly reported something awful about me. Okay, if you answer yes, then now you got to figure out who the client was and what did they say about you and was it true? Was it a lie? And now you get to, peel back those layers. If you say no, you're still not left with anything satisfactory. So you have to be very aware of the questions that you are asking yourself because they all have answers. So why not start asking some different questions? Why not ask the questions that when you answer it, it can help you move through this crisis? A question like, what is this here to show me? What lesson am I here to learn? A question like, what are these people reflecting back at me? If everyone's a mirror and they're just simply reflecting my beingness back at me, then where am I pulling the rug out from under myself? Or where am I not being fully transparent or not communicating? And where am I being sneaky and conniving? Those are questions that when you answer them, it gives you some insight and it gives you something to work with. And at that point, you can actually do something with it. Like, oh, wow, you know what? This is where I'm not showing up fully for myself. Oh, okay. I can do something with that. So you just got to understand that like every question has an answer. And when you're asking those questions about the situation from this low state, you're probably going to ask questions that aren't going to help you much. They're going to keep you feeling like a victim. They're going to keep you feeling powerless. They're going to keep you feeling like something was done to you, that they're all villains, that you had no say in the matter. And that is not going to help you rise above. That's not going to help empower you to create something different. That's not going to help you get the lesson from this that you need to receive so that you don't keep repeating it. So be aware of the questions that you're answering because every question has an answer. All right, next up, I only have a couple more things I want to get feedback on. And this is the last sentence of the second to last paragraph. And you say, re-examining the notion of loyalty, something I once prided myself in being, as it now seems hindering and naive. So here we go, loyalty again. And I say, being loyal to your greatness, loyal to your values, loyal to your purpose should never seem naive. Loyalty in general is not a naive thing. So I don't want you to start believing that it's naive to be loyal. I just think you place your loyalty in areas outside of yourself and you didn't surrender to principles. You didn't understand the principles that were happening and that are governing all of us, not just you and not just in this situation. Principles are universal truth. They're always happening. They're always true. And so one of the principles out there is for every choice, there's a consequence. And guess what? You chose to give your blood, sweat, and tears to this company. You did. That was a choice that you made, right? One potential consequence of that is you rise up in the ranks, right? Your effort is rewarded with promotions and salaries and bonuses and all that great stuff. That's a consequence, simply a result of the choice. Another potential consequence is you might feel ripped off if they fired you without any sort of satisfactory explanation. I get that. It doesn't make it any less crappy. It doesn't make it, any less frustrating. It's just simply consequence. Particularly when you're placing your loyal chips in their basket. Because if you had designed a job for yourself, or if you had chosen a job that aligned with your values, aligned with your mission, aligned with your purpose, and all along the way for 10 years, you made sure that as you were pouring into the job was pouring back into you, meaning you were getting your values fulfilled. You were getting your purpose, fulfilled. You were having your mission fulfilled. Then if that job ever went away, you aren't left at a loss because all along the way you were getting filled up. But that doesn't happen very often. That's pretty rare that people are so intentional about their career and their job that they get their life from it. A lot of times they give their life for it, and then they get frustrated when the job goes away, or they feel lost and confused when they retire and there's nothing, they feel like they don't have anything going on because they gave their life for a thing rather than got their life out of a thing. I think that's a great opportunity for you, Jody, to think about that. That's a possible lesson to learn from this. How can I make sure that the next career I get into, I get my life out of it? I get my life out of it. That if I pour into that job and career and position and company, I get myself poured back into simultaneously. Jody, that's why I left the job that I did. I was in marketing. I had a marketing agency, and I worked with other agencies around the city. And I poured my life into that stuff. But guess what? I was not getting my life out of it. And I felt it. And so after enough times of feeling burned and feeling like I wasn't getting enough from it, I decided to do something different and create something that allowed me to get my life from it, so that as I'm exercising and pouring into this work that I do now, I get filled up and I get benefit from it in a way that is real, not just in a way that fills my bank account and allows me to buy nice things and allows me to have a nice house, because all those things don't matter. At the end of the day, they don't truly matter. You know there are people out there who have all the stuff that you are coveting, yet they kill themselves. We know stories of that. Why would they do that if it was really about possessing and having the money and having the title and having all that? If it was really about that stuff, then why would people be taking themselves out and be addicted to drugs and alcohol and want to just go down, 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 down when seemingly they have so much? Part of that, in my opinion, is they don't get their life from what they do. They give their life for what they do. Two very different things. So I think about that with you. And I also think about the principle of consciousness creates. That's also at play here. Consciousness creates teaches us that everything is first created in the mind through thought, through that conscious creation that then turns into the physical. And what happens is possibility is created. Something is possible. Something is born into a space of possibility. So I think about for you, like, why maybe did you attract that to yourself? Like, why are you attracting this experience into your life? Again, what is the lesson? What is there to get from this? How can this experience help you level up? What are you needing to see from this? What opportunities is this revealing within yourself? I can't stress enough to think of it as a mirror. This is a mirror. And so what are the people in this company revealing to me through their own behavior? All of that is opportunity for you. And it's tough to see those things and to ask yourself those questions when you're in the emotional swirl of it all. It's tough. It really is. But that's why you're doing what you're doing, seeking some feedback from trusted veteran guides who can help you see the forest for the trees. So on to the last paragraph. I only have a couple more things to say. You wrote, how does someone, this is the big question, right? How does someone get the closure they desperately need in order to truly be happy again and be their best self without the possibility of confrontation? So what's great about this question is when something like this happens and you feel wronged and someone did something to you, a lot of times you do want a closure conversation, or you want to confront that person, or you want that person or that entity to apologize to you and to make it up. But you know what? That doesn't always happen. Let's say you're angry at a person and you're going to hold on to that anger until they apologize. What if that person dies and they can never give you the apology that you so desperately want and need? What are you going to do then? Right? Because You get it. How can you get to your happy space again, to be happy and be your best self without ever having the closure conversation? The way you do that, or one way you can do that, is to really examine the root essence of your attachments, the root essence of these triggers and the emotions that you're experiencing right now. You got to work on uncovering the lies about yourself that you're making true from the situation. And you work on healing and releasing those lies one by one. So here's an example. One lie you're telling yourself is that your worth is tied to your job performance. That's a lie, in my opinion. You might just call it a belief. It's not true, though. And so explore that. Really look at that and look at the consequence of holding that belief and ask yourself, am I willing to hold another belief that I am worthy simply because I am? Here's another lie. Loyalty to your company comes before loyalty to yourself. It's real easy to buy into that belief. You'll get celebrated for that. I've been there. I got celebrated for self-sacrificing for a company. And what company wouldn't want that? So many companies who are about the bottom line and are about making money will praise you for working overtime for 10 weeks in a row. They'll praise you for cashing in your vacation so that you can work more because they're about that money. So yeah, they're going to be like, no, listen, company loyalty is greater than loyalty to yourself and to your own values and to your own needs. And guess what? That's a lie. But you can buy into it if you want, or you can explore it and examine it and see if you can adopt a different belief. Here's another lie, a lie that they did something to you. That's that victim conversation, right? Because it's so easy to be in that space and it's so easy to make somebody else a villain. And I'm telling you, when you do that and you get comfortable with that, you just give your power away all over the place. Because right now you're feeling almost powerless to get back into your sweet spot, your center, because you can't confront them. You can't have a closure conversation. And so you're left like, what can I do? So really look at all these different beliefs that don't feel great in your body, that don't feel great in your being, and explore them and uncover where the lie is, and then find the truth. And if you address those things, the underlying beliefs, that the underlying beliefs that are fueling all those different lies in there, and be open to look at the things in a new way through a new lens, then you might find that you can let go little by little. Because as I shared earlier in the episode, letting go might be a process. It might be a little by little process, and that's fine. Sometimes you got to go like emotion by emotion. Like, okay, I'm feeling angry. I'm also feeling embarrassed. I'm also feeling let down. I'm also feeling cheated. And it's like, okay, can I look at that embarrassment? Why am I feeling embarrassed? What is really going on? What beliefs and what stories am I holding on to around the embarrassment? Can I let go of this little piece? Can I let go of this embarrassment? And then moving on to the next emotion, moving on to the next emotion. That to me is a process for how you can get back to that happy space. Because that happy space is free of those lies. That happy space, that space where your best self is that self that knows the truth, that knows your awesomeness, that knows your power, that knows you co-created this. Every choice is consequence. That's where that happy best self resides. It resides in truth. It resides in principle. It resides in that centered space. So the stories and the things that you're telling yourself, all those do is take you out of center, away from happiness, away from best self, away from truth. So as you wade through those stories and those lies, it helps you get back to centered truth. And Jody, the last thing I'm going to say to you is just reflecting on this last line of your email. I'm lost when it comes to getting over an emotionally jarring life hurdle that really messed with my head. And I get that. I get it. We have these really, really tough life circumstances and they mess with us. And so my honest suggestions for you are two things. Number one, go work with the coach. Go work with somebody. The root of your suffering right now is your thoughts, your stories, and the paradigms that you're looking at this whole situation through. That's where your suffering is. And so a coach can help you examine those beliefs. It can help you release the beliefs that aren't serving you. They can help you adopt and embody new ones that are truly going to empower you and honor you. And they can help you to forge some new habits that are actually going to uplift you and help you to create something different. Remember, it's inside out. If you want a different external experience, you got to do the internal work first. And that's what a coach is there for. My number 2 recommendation for you is grab the book Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. Same author as Power Verse Force, actually. Yes, he wrote both books. And right now you're trying to gain closure, you're trying to let go. Pick up this book. It's called Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender. And it literally outlines a process for letting go. I think it will be beneficial to you. Some of the things that I shared are come from the book, but it's an amazing text, and I'm going through it myself, and it's been really beneficial to me. So pick that up, Letting Go, David R. Hawkins, and go work with a coach. Go work with somebody who can help you to get your head up, see the forest for the trees, give you different perspective, hold you accountable to really truly figuring out what it means to be loyal to yourself. Because you say great things like, how do you truly be happy again and be your best self? What does it mean for you to be your best self? What does it mean for you to be truly happy? Not just from a feeling, but like the beingness of it. You got to get clear on that. Understand what that is for yourself. Get clear on it. And then you got to walk it. And you got to have somebody there to help you when you inevitably stumble and when the emotions come up and the denial kicks in and all that stuff. So that to me is what a coach helped me do. That's what I do with my clients. So I say, go get a coach. It doesn't have to be me. It could be another person, but work with somebody that can help you to process this situation. Or if you don't, and you don't have to, of course, if you don't, just be okay with maybe being in the swirl for a little bit longer. And that's okay too. Like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. The fact that you asked for feedback and sent the email, that tells me that you want to do something. But listen, you don't have to do anything. None of us do. But my final 2 recommendations: work with a coach, go pick up the book, Letting Go. In the process, go ahead and grab Power Verse Force 2. Both those books can transform so many things. Okay, Jody, that was a fun little conversation, huh? This was great. I really enjoy this type of stuff, and for everybody listening, there's just so much in there that I know is relatable, that I know you can get out of it, and this is like the real stuff. Like, when stuff comes up like this, we have to be willing to really look at it and face it and dig it apart and tear it up and examine each little nuance of it. It doesn't have to come in the form of an email or a letter, but to be able to do that within ourselves. And a lot of times you can't do that for yourself. You're too close to you, and you don't know what you don't know. And so it's by listening to conversations like this, getting into conversation with other people, working with coaches or therapists or counselors or whatever, that helps you to process these things. And that's why I think that stuff is so, 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 so valuable, particularly if you are playing for greatness in life, however you define it. If you're playing to really have it all, to really have that abundant, loving life, then yeah, it takes getting dirty. It's a great thing. So Jody, thank you again for the email. I appreciate you. I look forward to your feedback on my feedback. And for you listening, thank you for tuning in. This has been super awesome, and my throat is still burning like crazy, but you know what? This has been fun. I'm glad we did this. And please share with me your feedback. What do you think about this episode today? Email me, message me on Instagram. My email is matthew@matthewbivens.com. Instagram is Matthew_Bivens. If you want to share with me something like this, like Jody did, that you want feedback on, go for it. Type it all up. Let me know. Say, hey, read it. Give me feedback. Change my name in it or whatever. Keep me anonymous, whatever it is. And yeah, I dig this stuff. So, yep. All right, everybody. I'm out. I'm going to go blow my nose and lay down for a little bit and just relax. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. I appreciate you being so awesome, so real, and just going for it in life is a beautiful thing. Thank you. Love you. My name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you having it all. Quick note about the Having It All podcast. I am not a doctor nor a licensed therapist. I'm a guy with a story and a passion for conscious conversation. My thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are my own. So please consult with your doctor or healthcare provider regarding any questions or issues you have related to your personal, physical, or mental health.